Is the recession over? Many don't believe it. I get upset every time I hear or read in the news, but the recession is over and the economy is in recovery, said Janice Benson, owner of a small real estate office in Oregon. She said the president's stimulus package only helped the banks and a few special groups. It did not help mainstream America. President Barack Obama took an optimistic but cautious tone about the new GDP data. Remarks to a small business group. He said the economy has come a long way since early this year, but added, we have a long way to go to fully restore our economy. In my view, the economy has not picked up, said a research economist in Greensboro, North Carolina, who lost his job in May 2008 and was out of work until December. He said, the weak state of the economy is quite visible. I think it is simply irresponsible to make average citizens believe otherwise. Part of the disconnect between upbeat forecasts and the skepticism expressed by many people starts with the definition of a recession. Contrary to popular misconception, a recession is not necessarily over, even if the economy shows 2 consecutive quarters of positive growth, as measured by gross domestic product. The start and end dates of U.S. recessions are established by the National Bureau of Economic Research, a research organization whose conclusions on business cycles are widely accepted. The NBER's Business Cycle Dating Committee looks at a variety of statistics, including GDP, employment and industrial production, before determining the beginning or end of a recession. Jeffrey Franco, an economist at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and a member of the committee, said he and other economists want to see signs of a convincing and lasting recovery before declaring the recession is over. Although he thinks the recession could have ended in July, he also believes there is a 1 in 3 chance the recovery may stall out next year. If a new downturn made us reconsider, we'd call that part of the same recession, he said. So we wait. The latest adversity index from Moody's Economy.com and MSNBC.com shows that only 1 in 5 of the 384 metro areas in the United States has moved from recession into the recovery category, based on August data on jobs, manufacturing, and housing. The recession is moderating in another 270 areas, meaning the contraction in those economies is slowing, but some 35 metro areas are still in full-blown recession. The recovery also will be uneven from one industry to the next. In the industrial Midwest, many of the manufacturing jobs lost to the recession may never come back. So that's forced millions of workers to try to retrain themselves for a new career. Much of the optimism about economic recovery centers on upbeat news from the housing industry over the past few months. Sales have picked up and prices seem to have stabilized and begun rising again in some parts of the country. But at least some of that improvement stems from the $8,000 tax credit extended to first-time home buyers. And many sales are going to investors snapping up foreclosed homes at distressed prices. With the tax credit set to expire next month, and the foreclosure rate showing no signs of easing up, Goldman Sachs economist Alec Phillips cautions that the recent upturn could be temporary. The risk of renewed home price declines remains significant, he wrote in a research note last week, and our working assumption is a further 5 to 10% decline by mid-2010. So in essence, in reality, the recession is not over. Though residential housing may be nearing a bottom, commercial real estate is in a steep slide. The pace of layoffs or job losses has slowed, but the labor market remains weak across all districts, according to the latest economic report card from the Federal Reserve's Beige Book survey. So, as long as those layoffs continue, it's very hard to see how an economy based largely on consumer spending can stage a strong recovery. Although the official jobless rate is at 9.8%, the government's broader measure, which includes categories like discouraged workers who've given up looking for work, stands at least at 17%. And while stock prices have surged on Wall Street since the spring, consumers remain pessimistic about the economy and their own finances. The latest NBC Wall Street Journal survey, released this week, found 49% of Americans very dissatisfied with the state of the economy, up from 41% last month. And consumer confidence fell in October as job prospects remain very bleak, the Conference Board has reported this week. This has added to worries that an already gloomy holiday shopping forecast could worsen. With the exception of the Cash for Clunkers program subsidizing car sales, spending remains flat in most categories. The mismatch between economic data and public perception may also indicate sharp differences in attitudes based on where people are on the economic ladder. So in other words, the GDP has grown because of the Cash for Clunkers program and the $8,000 tax credit for housing. So if you took those out, the economy really didn't grow at all, did it? So what they're saying is, because of the government stimulus program, the economy has grown. So that means in order for the economy to keep growing, the government will have to continually stimulate the economy from now on. No government stimulus, no recovery. And also, no job growth, there will be no real recovery either. There is an income distribution issue. If the overall economy is growing, but the benefits are accruing to a minority of wealthy, and you can easily explain why the majority view is that things are not getting better. An uptick in the GDP data used to measure economic growth can also be seen as a sign that the recession has stopped getting worse. Supposedly, once the economy begins growing again, it won't feel like prosperity has returned until the nearly 8 million people sidelined by the recession have found jobs again. So how is that going to happen? And that process could take years. Again, so that process could take years. Even the most optimistic forecasts look for weak job growth through 2010. So, that is the story. No job creation, no real economic recovery. And as long as the United States government is stimulating the economy, yes, they can say the economy is growing or getting better or is recovery. What happens once that stimulus money runs out? Then what happens? That is, I would say, a very good question. And how much is it adding to the national debt to stimulate the economy? There does have to be a limit, because there are limits to everything. And there's something much more going on here, something much bigger. There are fundamental problems with the economies of the world. And greed, pure greed, has something to do with it. And again, these are more signs of the end times transition days. The transition is an ongoing, continuing process happening day by day all around the world. And there are many signs